We have two big stories coming out from China that will affect Tesla big time. Yes, it's true the competition is coming, but be very careful and just do a little bit more research. Jeff Lutz, a supply chain industry expert, is with us today, and he's been sounding the alarm for months. First, a report came out last week showing China EV giant BYD is slowing its production and reducing shifts in some factories in China. BYD, which sold 4.27 million cars last year, mostly in China, and has at least 7 car factories in the country, was previously targeting a 30% rise in sales, but this is before these new reports of cutting in at least 4 of their factories. Last month, BYD cuts prices of their cars by as much as 34%. Their inventory has ballooned and they have excessive delays in payment to their suppliers. Second, another Chinese automaker, Xiaomi, just launched their second car, the YU7, in China, and it looks to be a massive success with over 200,000 cars sold in just 3 minutes. Sold, not just pre-ordered. This looks to be a great car with many great features. We'll walk you through all the wonderful things that this car is able to do. Luckily for Tesla, Elon Musk, way ahead of time, knew this was going to come. And he's made his cars with the most important feature of all, full self-driving. We have Jeff Lutz here with us today. He's the ex-CVP of Supply Chain and Chief Quality Officer. He's now CEO of his own supply chain consulting firm. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, Herbert. Yeah, this is a lot going on Asia, the U.S., and let's sit down. Let's go through it. These are pretty important announcements.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this story, and I really appreciate you spending the time with us. This is a big one because for the last several months, everybody kept saying, watch out, Tesla. The killer here is BYD, and they're formidable, right? They've incredible sales, great company. They're creating, I know, did you tell me one time, 43 cars, vehicles that they have.
Different EV models, yeah.
Yeah, they're out there. They're making sales. Their sales are growing big, at one quarter, even higher than Tesla. But then you started to say, okay, let's dig a little deeper. With your experience in supply chain, Chief Quality Officer, you dig a little deeper and you try to look at the financials and you look at the inventory on hand, the days of outstanding payments. And cracks start to show, well, now this is truly seems to be more and more articles, more and more research is showing that maybe something is happening. You tell us where we're really at. This is a Reuters article and basically saying that BYD is slowing their production, delaying their capacity expansion at China factories. So, basically you have been talking about this for months. And now more and more signs are coming up. But basically, there are signs that their sales growth over the past couple of years that drove it to overtake Tesla as the world's largest EV maker could slow, grappling with rising inventory even after the cutting deep price cuts. So there's the price cuts, there's the delays in payment. Tell us what you know about this so far.
Well, I mean, first, I think it's important to say that BYD is, can fall victim to FUD as well. And I'm sure some of the stories out there are not true, and we should be very analytical and judgmental about them, similar how we would be with Tesla. But what at least started concerning me over a year ago was looking at the days payable. And it's not the actual gross number. This is basically the span in time, the aggregate span in time, looking at payables and receivables of when your inbound partners, your suppliers are being paid in number of days. Now, this differs geographically. In the US, in the auto supply chain, companies are typically paid somewhere in the order of 55 to 70 days in the auto supply chain, meaning, from the time they receive product to that aggregate time of their payables going out, it's about 55 to 70 days. And what companies try to do is when they look at their whole supply chain, what they're trying to do is they're trying to drive lower channel inventory and higher turns so they can sell product quicker, get payments from customers quicker than they have to pay their supply base. That's the whole game. That's how you're generating cash. And if you manage your supply chain, you manage your outbound channel inventory, in this case, your cars that are out there available for sale, and you keep that at a low number and you keep them moving quickly, you can actually, turn this into a cash generation machine. That's one of the tools. It's one of the things that Tesla doesn't get credit for by analysts in the marketplace, is literally having the lowest channel inventory in the industry and turning it very quickly. So getting back here to BYD, not so much the alarm bells were going off for me for BYD, was actually multiple China EV companies, and several of them have gone under and certainly pulled back in volume and supply. But there was a whole group of them together, and BYD was in that group. And what I saw was, since COVID 2020-21 timeframe, again, the payment terms and days payable in China tend to be a little bit longer than the US. We're 55 to 70 days in the US. China, probably best case is probably in the 75 to 95 day in terms of payment terms. So they're a little bit longer in general. But what was happening that I saw the alarm bells starting to go off for me was they were growing every single year. So 2021, I think they were in the maybe low hundreds, and then just all of a sudden you saw these big jumps, 50, 60, 70, 80 days every year. And at one point, I think BYD ballooned up to 275 days payable on an annualized term. So this is what people need to be careful about. There's quarterly metrics on this, and there's annualized metrics on this. Remember, the days payable are so long, it can span a pretty long period of time. And but just that last snapshot where they got to 275 days, I think they've actually brought it down a bit, but it's still excessively high. And if you think about that, that's 3 times, the norm. In Tesla, I think at one point was just over 100, 110 days. They brought it down. I think they're somewhere between 85 and 90 days, somewhere in that area. They're in the 80s. So Tesla's got, if you're doing business in China, you're a supplier, you link up with Tesla. Number one, they're making the highest volume car, the Model Y. So if you get an award on the Model Y, you're going to get a lot of volume. You're going to get it across a low model count, and you're going to get paid. So now when you're dealing with BYD, they have 43 models, 43 EV models, and you're not getting paid on time. Now, this is where everybody steps in and says, well, you don't get it. It's different in China. Well, I actually was in charge of a China supply chain as well for Lenovo as an executive there. So I definitely understand, and all my supply base for years was in China. So I definitely understand the nuances of working and dealing in China. And I know there's a difference, but when you started seeing all the things happening with these promissory notes between them, that basically it's like, hey, look, if you want to do business with us, we're the largest growing OEM and making vehicles. Well, you're going to have to work with us on payments. You're going to have to work with us on, and by the way, we can extend you credit based on the size of our company. So you had this circular thing happening between suppliers and them and either other auto OEMs as well in China. It wasn't just BYD. And in the US, there's financial audits that are done. There's viability audits that, that look at supplier health. These things would never be allowed. But, there is a difference of doing business in China, but you can't escape, payables growing by that much. And that's the growth year on year. That's the concern. It's not it's this one particular number. It's the fact that it was continuously growing. The second thing is nobody knew their channel inventory. Nobody knew how many cars were, produced and sitting in dealer inventories. And here we see all these notices of dealers, BYD, going out of business. So you see this unknown of channel inventory. You see these reports of 0 mile cars being sold as used. So there's multiple sale records for one car that's never even been driven. And these are reports, but the dealerships closing are not reports. The days payable are not reports. This is real. Mm-hmm. The channel inventory being unknown. This is why the alarm bells went off for me, saying, hey, there's something going on here that's not right. So now there's other analysts and there's other investigators now that are looking into this. And of course, BYD is going to be under the microscope given their size and given their growth. I think people should just be objective about it. I've been objective about it, but this whole thing, the media is not even looking at it. The U.S. media it's just completely ignoring it. They're just looking at revenue and they're looking at units. And I can't believe this. I mean, I can't believe with all this going on under the surface that they wouldn't investigate this and try to understand it. Are the sales real? What's the size of the channel? And What's happening with these cars that are being resold? Is this true? Can somebody investigate it? And then finally, the days payable. I mean, this is real. These are reported financial metrics. This isn't, something that can be faked. And then, of course, you got reports from suppliers themselves. Some have capitulated and said, hey, this is a real problem. And they go to the media on it. So there's definitely smoke. I think there's fire here as well. So we'll see what happens, how this plays out.
Yeah, great to get somebody like you with actual experience doing business in China and then at the executive level, and then following this auto industry so closely for you, like you have last year, been pointing it out, and more people are starting to realize that there's something here, right? We're not quite yet ready to say what's going to happen, but there's a great article here written by Mosconomy that just summarizes things that we're talking about here. And on paper, BYD looks great. 2024, 777 billion won. I think you divide it by 70 to get to where, US dollars. Is it 70? 7? Yeah. Can't remember now.
Over 41 billion,
yeah. 41 billion yuan. China claimed profit margin is 5.4. Okay, so they look great, but there's a supplier red flag. You've been pointing this out. 3-month production inspection delays, 3-month payment approvals. Remember that letter that they sent out to all their suppliers demanding a 10% cut in prices? They don't do that unless something is important is happening. The days on the outstanding of payments. Their own financials, if you look at the math here, the cost of building a car is about 105,000 yuan. The profit is about 19.5 thousand yuan, but the working capital is what you got to look at. There's a 33% jump since 2022. Not just bad, but systematically dangerous of why their working capital is rising compared to others. Look, they're like, 10 times more than what others are doing. So working capital, something happening, hitting losses per car. Cost per car is 125, revenue per car is 125. So it's like no profit, break even. So what does this mean?
I mean, there's more obvious things. I'm surprised the media and other journalists or analysts haven't picked up on. For example, why are they neck and neck with Tesla in sales? Tesla's average selling price is in the $47,000, $48,000 range for a vehicle globally. And BYD's at $16,000 or $18,000 per vehicle. I mean, it's literally a half to a third of the cost of a vehicle. They should have double the sales of Tesla. They should have some much larger number. So I don't know why there's this, this like the lens is strange to me. The lens should be, if your average selling price is this low and you're able to produce a vehicle at this low a price, your sales should be several times what Tesla is given the total available market at those price points. So to me, that was a red flag for me. Like, okay, wait a minute, is there something wrong? Like, why aren't their sales a lot more? Are they supply constrained? What's happening? And then I saw them expanding globally. And when you expand globally and you're putting product on ships, what are you doing? You're expanding the length of your supply chain. And when you expand the length of your supply chain, you're tying up cash. Okay. And then you see them starting to build factories abroad. You've seen the reports out of Brazil, the labor issues. You see them trying to build in eastern parts of Europe. The things that you can do in China, and I'd say the words get away with, but the things you can do there versus the things that you have to do in these other countries are two different things. Now, I don't doubt that at some point that they will figure out production and they will figure out how to do this. I just think that their cash is strapped. It's stressed with this global expansion. I think it's very difficult on their business. I think that's one of the reasons you've seen days payable expand. And I think their model count is way too high. And when you take their volume and you divide it into 43 different models, and you take Tesla's volume, and really 95% of Tesla's volume comes off the 3 and the Y. And that kind of concentration, that kind of focus gives you far more benefit upstream with suppliers all the way down through your channel inventory. I think they're sick. I think other Chinese automakers are sick too with too high a model count. But we're going to talk about another China automaker, which I think is handling it the right way and is not sick by any means. And we'll talk about why I think they can be successful. And it's really the antithesis of what BYD is doing.
if you take what they're not paying their suppliers and they actually made them pay it in time, like Tesla does, they'd be tens of billions of dollars in losses. So it's kind of
Correct.
being pushed off. And we'll see if they can be saved. Anyways, I appreciate the evaluation here, because you have been one of the sole voices talking about BYD, and it's not done deal or anything like that, right? The chairman of CEO of Great Wall, another Chinese automaker, came out recently saying that there is a Evergrande, which is that real estate, too big to fail, but did fail in China. Says it's happening in the auto industry. Sounds like he's referring to BYD. And the government themselves held a meeting, brought all the Chinese automakers, said, you've got to stop these price wars. You've got to stop these, what they call zero mileage used vehicles, which means that they're actually brand new vehicles. And then they sell them to somebody, and then they resell them to to export to Russia or something like that. It's all smoke and mirrors a little bit, some of it, and we don't know how big of it is. Yeah, it's like these articles or this information comes out, and we need to know.
It's these unfair practices that make it impossible for foreign entrants to compete, and it makes it, quite frankly, they're trying to break all the domestic manufacturers as well. So when you can go and kind of do these guerrilla tactics in your supply chain and payables and inventory and so forth. Again, these are the things that are pretty well documented. I'm not even speculating on the other things, but it actually crushes everybody else. And I think what China's looking at is like, is this really the greater good for the country to have no competition and have somebody just doing so? Anyway, I think there's more to come on this one.
The other side, of course, is everybody kept saying BYD is the Tesla killer, and they're certainly large. But you have been saying this other company is the one we need to be watching out for, Xiaomi. And the reason is Xiaomi is it's like an Apple, right? It's like they create the smartphones and they make smart devices, and now they started to create electric vehicles as well. That is the kind of company, right? Focused on software, focused on AI. They're the more likely one to be copying Tesla, and they have. They had a first vehicle that was like the Model 3. Now they have a second vehicle, the YU7 SUV in China that they launched. And it looks like it's a great successful launch. Starts at $35,000 US dollars. It's $1,400 less than the Model Y. In 3 minutes, Xiaomi secured 200,000 pre-orders, breaking all previous records for a car launch in China. And those weren't just pre-orders. Like they weren't just reserving a space in line. They're actually put down a down payment. They're going to buy the car. I want to play the video. This is a really, really good looking car.
How crazy are Chinese people? The car right behind me just launched last night, and they received 200,000 orders in just 3 minutes.
All right, it is a Xiaomi U7, starts around 35K with 835 kilometers range. This car has 3 trim levels. The one here is the standard version with 320 horsepower, but the max version has crazy 700 horsepower. The design, I think, is quite sporty. The first thing I want to show you in the cabin is this 1.1 meters high-tech HUD. Watch this. We can do customization things. For example, we want to change the position of the display like this. Wow, watch this. Wow. Over this side, you have a powered magnetic charger, and no actual wiring needs. Center screen, 6.1 inch. So this thing comes with Apple CarPlay. That will be Apple user friendly. Okay, and all these things you can customize, like physical buttons. And of course, if you don't like it, you just remove everything from here. Down below here, you have 2 wireless charging pads, and over this side, you have 2 cup holders. Wow, I like the way it pops up. And the center console part, this little thing, it's actually a control button. Let me show you guys. We can just put it over here. Then we can control the passenger seat by clicking this button here. All right, now let's have a look at the second row. Double layer insulated glasses. Cool. Over here, we have a control screen. We can control the music, our seats, our climate. This thing is not fixed. Actually, we can remove it like this. Underneath here, we have a mini fridge. The seats are pretty comfy. I can adjust
the angles all the way to 135 degrees. Watch this. I think here front is nothing special, but Xiaomi is different. Watch this. So the whole thing, the bonnet lift up, the storage is around 141 liters. I'm thinking, what if McLaren makes SUV will be good as this one? So what do you guys think?
What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I know Xiaomi well, and I know BYD well, by the way, as well. I know the team. I've done business with them for a long time. I know the Xiaomi team. They're doing things right from many perspectives. Okay, and again, I've been very critical of other automakers, but I've been very clear on Xiaomi, and they've been the one to watch. One is very low model count. So you have the first, the Model 3 competitor, then you have this YU7. So they have two main models. Yes, they have variants of those models, but they're going the Tesla route actually, with very few low model count. The antithesis of what is happening at BYD and quite frankly other China OEMs. And look at the order drive that they have on this, the order count on this YU7. So low model count, high automation. They suggest that they have a lights out factory, basically fully automated end to end. Now, there's pros and cons to that. It takes a while. It can take a while to get that up to scale on a brand new model. But once it is, you have the precision, you have the consistency, and then once you depreciate that capital over a large volume of units, you take the human labor element out of it, which is, it's relative to the rest of the world. It's cheap to build in China, but it's actually not cheap anymore, or like what it used to be. And you can build much cheaper and from a labor perspective in Vietnam and India and so forth. So with rising labor costs, and this allows them to take this factory and potentially go global at some point, and put it somewhere else. And it's highly automated, so they're not going to be, they're not going to have to deal with the much higher local labor rates in Europe and other places. They can just set up, automate, and get going. And Xiaomi as a company, they have a history of having a global presence, both in manufacturing and distribution, from the smartphone world. And in the smartphone world, they figured it out. They entered, they acquired the right talent, and over time, they produce product that is highly coveted all over the world. Except in the U.S., we're a little bit, we're behind, I would say, and there's been issues with us and Huawei and us and ZTE in the U.S. in terms of import restrictions on their products, and other China vendors basically don't want to take that chance. But if you go anywhere else in the world, especially Latin America and Europe, you'll see Xiaomi smartphones everywhere, and they're typically a perennial top 3, top 5 in volume, by the way, in the world in smartphones. Li Jun, very smart CEO, very smart. He's a product guy. So if you think of BYD CEO, he's a chemical engineer. He's a more of a process, technical type. But Li Jun is definitely a product CEO, and you can see it both what he's done in the smartphone world and now what he's doing with EV. Now, we can have the same critical eye too. So these factories, these lights out factories, how long did they take to depreciate all this capital? Is it really this highly automated? How are they profitable already on their first vehicle? There's some, questions about that's all fair, I think, to ask in a question, but the way that they've set up, low model count, high automation, very good product. I think they're the one to watch. Finally, just one thing to keep in mind for folks is they still have to ramp this thing. They don't have tens or hundreds of thousands of these sitting around already where the pre-orders just get filled. It's going to take them, those 200,000 pre-orders are going to take them, probably well over a year or more to produce. So anyway, they still have to ramp, and they still have that runway in front of them, but they got the product, and they've set themselves up, I think, for success.
Yeah. They're about to experience Model 3 production hell that they need to do, right? It's a factory, it's a product, but they have a great looking car. They have the great, the kind of the background to do this right. So let's take a quick look here. This is their the list of specs: $35,000, 16-inch center touchscreen, panoramic display across the dashboard, leather, zero grit, 10-point massaging front seats, lots of features. You saw that, hidden air vents, lots and lots of features, but also very fast, 681 horsepower, and so forth. Good looking car. I mean, it's okay, right? They try to copy it. Looks just great. But this is what he said. He said, Tesla, this is the CEO of Xiaomi, said, Tesla's indeed amazing, leading the industry trends in many areas, especially full self-driving. We still have to continue learning. For the first time in history, the vehicle was delivered to the owner by itself. This is Grace Tao talking about Tesla. There was no driver or remote control throughout the journey, and the maximum speed reached 115 kilometers per hour, and it arrived safely at the customer's door. This is a brand new Model Y Tesla. So we knew already, right? Tesla, Elon has been saying for quite a while that we're all in the electric vehicle market, but pretty soon EVs will be a commodity. Other car companies will come and make this. And what happens is you need to create the full self-driving. If there weren't, he said before, right? If there weren't two major revolutions happening, I'm not sure Tesla would succeed. The first one is EVs, transition to EVs, and the second one is transition to full self-driving autonomous cars. And so because you have both of them, Tesla's going to be able to separate themselves from the pack. So I just think that it's quite apropos that the moment when a really good car like this finally comes out. Now, we don't know yet. Like you said, they have to still manufacture. We don't know if they can make it profitable. But finally you have a real competitor to Tesla, and you can say, hey, they're the Tesla killer. At that moment, that's when Tesla cars start driving themselves. So, these guys even then have to now catch up, right?
Well, if you're Tesla, you've got the new lower cost vehicles that have to get out to the marketplace. It's, we're recording this, it should have been announced at this point. So is there a delay or an issue? So you have the new lower cost vehicles, you have full self-driving, you have killer features, and now you are entering for China. If you get below that $30,000, $35,000, $30,000 range, you are now entering territory where the competitors have to start wondering, do I have a problem? Because people understand, if they don't research the data, in the price tiers that Tesla competes in, nobody outsells them in China. None of the China manufacturers outsell Tesla at the price tiers that they compete. Let's see what happens now with the YU7 in this product. Remember, they have to get the scale, and let's see how it goes. It was a good product so far.
One thing you've repeated a few times, but I think it's worth repeating again, is you always say people compare what it is today versus what it will be 2 years from now. And so you've got, this Tesla's has their Model Y now, but then these guys are just starting now. It's the opposite of what you've been saying, actually, in this case. It's like usually the other way around. Tesla's brand new car that they just released, it's being compared to cars that's been out there for several years. In this case, this car is brand new, but it needs to, by 2 years from now, when they actually start producing this at this scale, where would Tesla be at that point in terms of full self-driving, in terms of...
Where would they be in autonomy?
Cost.
And their other vehicles, correct.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jeff. That was great. Your experience with BYD, you've been predicting that, and you've been talking about Xiaomi as well as the one to watch. Here they've come out with a couple, and this is the one to watch, I think. This is the one to follow. Probably them, and what do you think? Huawei would be the other one too? Yeah.
Li Auto as well. I would say 1 and 2. Yeah, potentially Huawei. Those maybe the top 3 to keep an eye on. China.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. Follow Jeff on his X account at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.